You know, you got to be able to think. You got to be able to think above your emotions. You have to be emotional. I forgot what the word is. It's something, but you have to be above your emotions. That's emotional intelligence, is to be above your emotions, to feel them, but to not be moved by them. People are so triggered by them. As soon as the emotions take over, their frame of seeing, their perception is shifted into the same emotional signature or the energetic signature as that emotional state or chemical state. And then they can't see anything above or below those emotions. It's so easy to control people that way. And nobody's interested in overcoming that stuff. Everybody wants to be an emotional baby. How do you overcome the emotional state? It takes awareness. That's the first step, becoming aware of the chemical process that happens. Like when Dr. Joe said that you continue to have a mood when, like, put like this, he says emotions, they come and go within 90 seconds. None of us have really ever experienced that. Emotions coming and going within 90 seconds. But emotions come and go within 90 seconds. If they prolong more than 90 seconds, it's because you get stuck in this loop. What ends up happening is you feel, the feelings create thought. We think that we're thinking, but feeling triggers thought. And then that thought bubbles up, and then we think it, and we think it always usually in first person, so it sounds like us talking, but it's actually our body generating. It's like our body naturally communicating to us in an automatic way, something that we set up in the past. Basically, like our ego or our subconscious self, we've set it up in a way so that it spits out those words to get us to do a certain thing. So we've programmed it that way. So when we receive a feeling, we go into an emotional state. There's only two emotional states. There's love and fear. That's pretty much what it boils down to. Those are words, human English words or whatever, but basically attraction and repulsion. That's what those two. And then there's gradations of feelings that are in that. The hypothalamus excretes the chemicals into our body, and then we feel something. Once we get into an energetic state, excretion, feel something. You feel something that bubbles up thought. You think the thought thinking that it's you, and then people believe their thoughts because they think that it's them, and then they act on them. Once you understand that those thoughts aren't you, you're not typically ever thinking. You know, you're not typically ever thinking. People typically think when they're in pain or pleasure. The pain is like, oh shit, what is that? I never want to experience that again. How do I get away from this and not experience that again? That's when they think, and then they fall right back into sleep. That's usually how it goes. And then they find pleasures like, oh, I like this. I want to be around this all the time. How can I make my life so that I'm around this all the time? And then they fall back to sleep. That's how it usually goes. So no one is ever really thinking. They're being triggered. The triggers is making them think that they're thinking, and then they act on those thoughts. And when they believe the thoughts, when you believe the thought, it triggers the hypothalamus again to excrete the chemicals again to make you feel more in line with that. And then more thoughts, and then you get stuck in this loop. And then you end up, for example, we've all had the experience of somebody did something to us that was offensive. We haven't seen them face to face yet, but we've argued with them in our heads. And now we argue with them in our heads, and we steaming already, right? And it's like we believe the shit that they said back to us in our heads. We've already created their narrative, their whys and all that. You living in it already. It's like that exact same thing. So once you're aware of that process, the first thing that typically happens is you get that trigger, the thoughts come, you get stuck in the loop, and then you become aware that you're stuck in the loop. It's still going to feel good to be stuck in that loop, though. That's the hard part, is breaking out because it feels good. But that awareness, when you really want out of it, you start to feel, how can I say it? You start to feel ashamed of allowing those things to happen. So that creates that space. So then you start to feel, you have the thoughts, and then you stop on the action. And you're like, oh, and you're just sitting there kind of fuming, but you didn't do the action. And then you see the results of that. A lot of times you miscategorize somebody, or you thought they said something that they didn't say, and because you didn't act on it, now you get to find out the truth, and that kind of solidifies that in your mind, or you become proud of yourself for not doing the same patterns before. And then every time you do that, you're really retraining the body. It's like training a dog to stay when you put food down. When you put the food down the first time, it's running to it. And then as over time, it sits there and it, and then it goes get the food, and then the next time it sits there, then it goes gets the food, and the next time it just looks at you like, because it gets it. You know, that's how it ends up happening. So it's just little bit by little bit by little bit. Like the same way I tell people you eat an elephant one bite at a time. It seems like an overwhelming task, but really it's only one bite at a time. So you give yourself grace to fail a lot and to only have small increments of success, right? Because that's how it works. It doesn't work like this. It's not an overnight thing. And then eventually what ends up happening is it sets in. And that the emotion hits, the words come up, and now you're looking at them like this, like, wow. that's not even me. Like that. And then the other person might get triggered, and then you watch them like, wow, they believe their thoughts, and so eventually you become separated from that way, and then that becomes your baseline. You retrain the ego self on how you want to respond. And then you don't even get the same thoughts when it bubbles up. You'll get a thought like, well, I wonder what they're going through today that would make them feel that way. Stuff like that will start to happen.